sing verses 1, 2, and 4.
Thank bended knees, humble to your presence. We ask that you forgive us of all sins that we commit on a daily basis. We ask that you keep us protected. We ask that you place a hedge of protection around all the Tom who's traveling, everybody else who's traveling today. All those people that have lunch, we ask that you give each one of them Mary's sister, you need to be able to provide. The channels of them, be with them, comfort them. It's not a time of, it's a time of grieving, it's also a time of great joy with them for us. He's no longer suffering, he's no longer sick, he's with you, God. Be with the children and sisters as they move their mother to the new home. Give her peace. Take a step that we're getting to that age. Whatever might happen. Father, we just ask all these things. And as we come to you in the prayer, as your Son taught us to pray. Our Father, thank you, Bonnie. That's Bonnie. But there is a group of youth from Faith Community Church over here in Russell. They're actually stuck in Haiti right now. They went on a mission trip and some kind of turmoil. Fellowship, yeah. They're still alive right now. All of them are safe. None of them are injured or anything like that. But they're not able to leave Haiti right now. So, their words are kind of like, allegedly. Alright, so be sure to keep those in your prayers as well.
It's
Excuse me while I get all my electronic devices correct here.
He's not used to
I
it.
kind of had, this is my iPad right here. I call it my pad, it's not an iPad.
You good? Gotta go into view.
You gotta turn that on. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Have we got contact? Hello, Houston. It's good to be back. So how is everybody this morning? I was a little prophetic in what I was supposed to wear. What I did wear, I thought about wearing a suit, tie, coat, whatever, but, I'm glad I didn't. And I see that most of y'all are dressed comfortable. The ones that are not, I hope you keep on what you have before the service. At least leave it on during the service. Betty Lunsford, did I say that out loud? Anyway, I would like to thank Randy Hall. He asked me to do this. And, when we choose to follow Christ, I told him I'd think about it. But when we choose to follow Christ, we have a responsibility. And before the choir practice was even over, I said, well, that's a no-brainer. I must do this. I pray to do it, I pray to step up and be a witness before God any way I can every day. And hopefully, that's why I'm here. So y'all bear with me. But the scripture today comes from Philippians 4:4-7. And I'm going to read the old-fashioned way if you don't mind. Nell, this is for you. I hear this is one of your favorite passages too. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing. Let your requests be made known to God and with thanksgiving. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ. The peace that surpasses all understanding. Remember that phrase as I convey to you this message. Brother Don, he was doing the Beatitudes, and this is basically a second installment for what he did. He did his own piece last Sunday, and I wasn't going to change mine. So we're going to go a little more in depth with peace. And the question I want to ask you is, what kind of peace do you have? Do you have peace of mind, or do you have peace of the spirit, peace of the soul? We all have both. Which do you choose to exercise the most? Or which do you choose to invest in? Your peace of mind or your peace of soul? Peace of mind is created by man. And peace of soul is gifted by God. There's two big differences. One we can achieve on our own, the other we cannot. Peace of mind is very conditional. It's very circumstantial. You almost have to create the atmosphere for peace of mind. We all know that. We all search for peace of mind every day in our lives. It's subject to change, and it's dependent on our surroundings and our mood. It's a lot of you ladies that cook, your souffle, the ladies that cook souffles in ovens, you got to just baby it. You got to be gentle with it, and you got to have the right temperature, you got to have the right ingredients, or it just goes flat. Well, that's kind of what peace of mind does. If it's not just right, if conditions aren't right, peace of mind will just go flat. Just a quick example, it happened to me yesterday. I had a rough day yesterday. I had a lot on my plate. I had household chores. I was preparing to do this. I had a birthday party that was a previous commitment I had to go to early yesterday afternoon. So my plate was full, and about 12:30, about lunchtime, I was pretty much exhausted emotionally. And I said, I need to make time to make my peace. I need some peace of mind right now. So this doesn't happen often, but you get those cravings for a certain food that's just really not that great for you. I had a craving for a Big Mac. That happens about twice, maybe 3 times a year. And I said, well, I'll go get me a Big Mac. I'll be in my truck and kind of cruise by myself. It's not unusual. If y'all see me eating alone, it's very not unusual for me to eat alone. I do it at work a lot. It just kind of gives me time to regroup and get reorganized. So I knew Chalkle Mountain Road would be busy, and from my house, I went the back road and took Green Drive, which is the back of these establishments. So I whip in there in McDonald's, and I said, wow, this is a big line here. I mean, they were stacked up at the drive-through, and I said, I'm not waiting in this. And I said, well, this is probably a God thing. I said, I'm going to park my car, go in order, be in air conditioned, I'll be alone, and I'll have time to kind of regroup and reorganize and kind of take a reprieve from the tedious day that I had. Well, I went up to the counter, and he says, could I help you, sir? And I said, yeah, you look pretty busy today. He says, oh, we are. And I said, well, I'll make it easy on you. I want a Big Mac meal, and I want the combo. And he looked at me, he says, then nothing was said. And he kind of looked at me strange. I knew my hair wasn't messed up. But he kept looking around me. He didn't say anything. He was just silent for a minute. And I said, yeah, I think that's all I want. I just want a Big Mac meal with, a combo. And he looked at me strange again, and there was just silence, a very awkward silence. And he pointed at the board, and he looked up, and he said, sir, you're in Wendy's. And Wendy's and McDonald's are right next to each other. I went in the first right instead of the second right. And I said, oh, well. I said, in that case, I'll pick your Big Dave special, cheese and all that kind of thing, trying to cover up. But that pretty much shot my piece. The condition had gone because I was worried about sitting down and these poor people passing by going, that poor indigent man sitting there has nobody to sit with him because apparently, he's emotionally challenged. So yeah, my piece kind of went out the door then. So that's what I'm saying. Your piece, it's got conditions that a lot of times don't really work through. And I can ask you, what brings you peace personally? That's different things for different people, I know. Vacation comes to mind for me. You got vacation or a place, you got the beach, you got the mountains, you got kids on a mission trip or kids that move away from home. That, brings peace to a lot of people. Not meaning to step on any toes, but, different things, different ways of peace can change or be apt to change. They're very conditional at any time. I was listening to local news, Channel 6, about 3 weeks ago, and the anchor was just making a commentary, and they do all these surveys, every once in a while. And she said that 85% of Americans, sometime during the day, think about vacation 285 days out of the year. And I said, wow. And at first I thought, no, something's wrong with that. And I thought, well, I'll probably do that too. At some time you think of escape. You need a rest. And that's what Americans are doing today. They need a rest. It can be very fatiguing, living in the world today. And job to job, and, the burdens of a job, the burdens of a family. Yeah, I can see where people want peace of mind. And that's just another way of saying, we need peace of mind, and you can daydream about it. You can't always produce it. What distracts you from your peace of mind? We can, down the gamut. You can just pretty much make it anything you want to. What about traffic? Going to work in the morning, traffic, road rage. I've been a victim of it. I've done it. Traffic is not one of my best moments when I would rather move. If I'm coming home from work from Irondale and I got to go to Trussville, I'm going I-59, there's a point on I-59 you can see probably about a half mile down the road where it veers into 459, veers into 59. If it's traffic backed up at that point, I will go through Bessemer to get back home instead of waiting on traffic. Cannot do it. I got to be moving. I would rather move and go 50 miles out of the way than I would stay still for 10 minutes. That's just me. And that's something that distracts my peace. Another thing is bad relationships. It can be a grudge. Something I'm probably going to step on everybody's cell phones. Can they not be a distraction? Not only a distraction for your peace, they can be a distraction for your life. Go down Highway 11 sometime in the morning, about 7:30 when I do, and you can tell the people that are texting, because you'll see a line of cars, and there'll be a car veering here, they do one of two things. They'll veer in between the lanes as close as they can, and they finally catch themselves if they cross over and sideswipe somebody. Then they go the other way. Or you got one person going about 2 miles an hour, and they got their text. You pull up to them, and they got their cell phone on their steering wheel, and they're trying to read. I guess they got to slow down to concentrate. I don't know. And there's a mile in front of them, and they're not letting traffic by. I tell you what, you see that, and I'm not so sure I would rather contend with a bunch of drunks going down the highway, because at least they're trying to stay between the lines. These other people don't care. Johnny said what? They catch it at the last minute. But yeah, that can interfere. That can be very disturbing. And I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. Most of y'all probably don't know. I think some of my youth probably know it. Don't tell anybody else. But I don't own a cell phone. I don't have one. I don't use one from day to day. I don't even have one. I catch grief with my son and my wife, my daughter-in-law, because I just don't. I was ahead of the curve. I saw it coming, and I said, hey, man, I got a lot of complications in my life already. It's really hard for me to manage. I don't need somebody texting me, telling me what to do on top of all that. But, it's funny when you're in the world that you are today, how people look at you when you tell them that you don't have a cell phone. I'll be exchanging niceties with somebody at work, or somebody socially or something. They'll say, hey, well, give me your cell phone, I'll text you. I said, well, I don't have a cell phone. Do you realize the reaction, the look on their face when you tell people you don't have a cell phone? I mean, it's like you're a leper. They don't know how to process it. You don't have a what? You don't have a cell phone? You don't use a cell phone? They just don't know how to process it. You're just a plague. It's so funny to see their reaction, because about 99.5 of people in America have a cell phone. Well, Julie says, what are you going to do if you get in trouble? And I said, well, what I'll do is I usually have a little bit of change in my pocket or some money. I'll pull over on the road and offer somebody $5 if I can use their cell phone, because the first person I pull over, they're going to have one. And I said, so I'll take care of that. And poor Holly, I can imagine when her and Ethan started getting to a serious point in their relationship. I guess the big obstacle wasn't telling them that she was getting serious with Ethan. It was about her daddy. Let me tell you this, Mom and Dad, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to be braced, but he don't have a cell phone. And I can imagine they rolled their eyes and said, oh my gosh, he's one of those people, But my theory on it, I got an office phone. I got a message on it. I do have a computer. I got a personal computer with email. And I got a landline phone at home, and it's a good landline phone. I bet you that cord reaches probably from that door to, I don't know, about maybe this far, probably half that distance. So I can go a great distance inside the house. But, I got to hold the cord behind me, but I got it. So I got those three things. If you need to get me, and I got caller ID. So if you need to get me for any reason, I'll get back with you later, but I'll get back with you. It may not be immediate. But peace of soul, that's one that we don't have to have any conditions for. The only condition you have to have for peace of soul is to ask, and it will be given. And I want to read you, if anybody cares to follow, I want to read from John 16:33. Bear with me just a minute here. John 16:33. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. And in John, of course, he's saying that Jesus said, all you got to do is ask if you want to come this tribulation, if you want to overcome it. Some of the qualities of peace. One is the peace that passes all understanding. Human wisdom, human knowledge, human logic, it passes all that. We can't predict it. We can't put our hands on it. We can't scientifically prove it. It's kind of like grace. It's gifted to us. It's gifted to us by our Lord Jesus Christ. It will save your life. It can comfort us during trials and tribulations. We don't have to escape these things. It can comfort us in the chaos of the world as where we stand. And it's very healthy for our spiritual health and evaluation. How many times in the scripture that y'all read that Jesus had to leave the crowds? Jesus of all people, the Prince of Peace. He walked away from the crowd. He went to the mountain. He went to a place to be alone, time and time again in the scriptures. He wasn't doing this to leave the crowds. He wasn't escaping the crowds. He was doing this to fortify his spirit. Because, Jesus was in such a demand. He gives so much that if he didn't take time to go fortify his spirit, to go re-energize his spirit, he was in the flesh. It would have brought him down. And he knew that. The Son of God, go and connect with his Father as often as he could to re-energize, to come back and help us, help the ones in need. Society, it's in a world of hurt. That's no news. I don't need to tell y'all that. Anybody that looks objectively, if you want to go politics, we got two parties and sometimes three throwing things at each other and got a mess going on there. I tell you what, we're not in a political turmoil, we're in a spiritual turmoil. Because that's what you're seeing. They want to put it on, this theory and this theory about how this country should be run, how it could be run. They want to put it on that, but it's all a spiritual turmoil. We need peace. The sad part is how many, when I was growing up, suicide wasn't that prevalent. I guess it was in certain parts, but the news didn't travel like it did. But it just seems like every time you turn on the TV, you've got people killing themselves. And I mean prominent people. Just in the past months, how many of you heard prominent people that you thought, wow, it was in the pinnacle of their career, in the height of their success, going to a room and killing herself. You had a popular chef that everybody followed, loved watching his program, was still in the middle of his program. You've had movie stars that have done just about every type of movie, every type of role that you could possibly think of. And you've had clothes designers, Spade, that's built an empire from her art and from her talent. And from our point of view and from society's point of view, would think that they had everything they needed. I'm no medical expert by the far reaches of the mind, and certainly don't have any psychological remedies or such as that for what happened to these people. I know there's a lot of hypotheses going out there about what they were going through, if they were not on enough medication or they were not taking the right medication or what have you. But I can tell you without any doubt in my heart, I can tell you what they didn't have. They didn't have peace. They did not have peace in their lives. They did not have peace in their soul. I can tell you that without a doubt. This society's hurting. We need peace more than ever today. We don't need to overlook that. We need to know how important it is. Spiritual peace, one thing spiritual peace will do, it will organize you. How many lead perfectly organized lives? If you're like me, you get up in the morning and the things you decided 5 minutes ago make no difference anymore because of the intervention of certain circumstances in your life. By the time you get to work, you're already frazzled. You haven't even worked 8 hours yet because you have been so organized in your life and you don't know where to start and where to finish. Peace, if you take time to have peace and reconnect with your Lord, it will organize your spiritual priorities to where they're supposed to be. And that's one of the most important things about it. Organizing your life and organizing your spiritual qualities to show you and to tell you what priorities you need and which ones you need to put to the side. I want to tell a little story. Y'all heard this many times before. I'll try to keep it short, but it's a maritime story. It's a war story. It's many of y'all might have heard of the USS Indianapolis in World War II. It happened to be the ship that delivered the bomb to Hiroshima. Let me get my facts straight here. There was a crew of 1,196 sailors on that ship. We weren't as advanced in communications as we are today, by no means. And basically all the communications we had were through airwaves, through bands, through waves of radios. Well, much like hackers today, they were very susceptible to being intercepted by the enemy. And no means that they want this to be intercepted. I mean, this very secret, decisive move that the U.S. Military was making. So their remedy to that, they didn't tell anybody. They sent the ship, just the powers to be on the ship, the commanders, and just chose a few of these knew where we were going and the purpose and how imperative it was to get to that South Pacific island to deliver this bomb. Well, nobody was told. Not even the mates were told. They were just on another trip from service. So they did deliver it safely. But the bad part is on the way back, rode Japanese submarine ship, spotted them and put 2 torpedoes in the side, sunk the ship. Like I said, there was 1,196 on board. 300 went down with the ship, with the casualty. 900 went in the water. And if y'all are a fan of Jaws, it tells a pretty good story on this, but I'm going to add to this because PBS had a documentary about 5 years ago, and they interviewed some of the survivors of the Indianapolis. They interviewed them personally, and it was very compelling. I saw that. Great documentary, and you heard it firsthand. The worst, you had 300 guys, 900 guys floating around in the water, basically in a shark bed. The worst maritime shark disaster ever to this day happened on that in that time. The bad part about it was they didn't know how long they were going to be out there. Excuse me, they weren't even reported missing until a week after this happened. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So they were there afloat, trying to survive. They said basically it was placing blue-tip sharks, which have a tendency to frenzy feed and stay in. Great whites are pretty much rogues. They just go across and hit and run and keep going. Blue tips will stay. So the battles with that, they talked on that lightly. The battles with that, they tried to regroup, organize in groups and fight the sharks away as they'd come, when they would come to whatever group it was. Some would leave, some wouldn't. But succumbed to, they had limited water supply. That was one of the worst things other than the sharks. They had very limited water and they had to ration it. And really it wasn't enough to it was just barely enough to keep you alive. It was rationed to a very small amount for each person before it ran out. So some of them would succumb. This was the sad part. Some of the people would break command. They still had commanders in there and they were commanded to stay afloat and not drink the salt water. Do not drink the water, because when you drink salt water, that's your only source of liquid. That salt gets in your body and it swells the cells. They expand to bigger than they should, which in turn expands the walls of arteries and expands the walls of the vessels going in your brain. And it makes you very hallucinate. It makes you hallucinate. It makes you very volatile, violent, and it affects you much like rabies. You basically go mad. So what would happen is the other guys, they were just doing everything they could to survive. They were weak too. The flesh was weak, as Jesus would say. Trying to subdue these guys. They were so they hallucinated, I'm trying to say hallucinogenic. They hallucinated so much that they thought that the fresh water on the ship was directly below them in tanks. And they would try to dive down and make it to the fresh water, and that's how logic, that's how crazy. they would try to dive down and somehow secrete the water from the tanks as though they could and get to that fresh water. And so it tired the other crew and put their lives in so much peril trying to contain them that they made a rule. They said if anybody else breaks command and succumbs to drinking salt water, let them go. Break them away from the circle and let them float out to sea. And I know that's a cruel and a heartbreaking thing to do, but when you are putting a few lives, when you're risking the lives of 900 men trying to survive, and less by then from all the shark attacks, when you're risking the lives of your whole crew, you've got to make a decision. And you've got to make some rash decisions. Do I want to save a few guys that break command and drink salt water and put my other crew in peril, or do we let them go? The choice was to let them go. And the most heart-wrenching thing about this whole thing is when they were found by a rescue plane, search and rescue, small plane, couldn't take them all in. I'm going to say it was a week and a half out, sitting in the ocean, floating around, wondering, you can imagine, losing all hope. The kid found them. And of course, he reported them, and shortly thereafter, big rescue boat come. And at this point, there was only 300 out of 1,196 men, and that's 300 out of 900 that entered that water alive. 300 lived. The rescue boat was going to take time to get all these people in. They were dehydrated. They were thirsting for water, for fresh water. So they organized lines perpendicular to the plane. The group would go this way. You'd have a line of groups this way, and you'd have a line of groups facing the plane. And you'd have the commanders first, and then the ranks went on down to the end of the lines. So fresh water, they knew they had to get it to them first. And this was from a testimony from one of the survivors. And they filled the cup up, and they give it to that first commander. And he says as much as he wanted to drink that fresh water, as many days as he'd been without water, he passed that cup to the second one. The second one passed it to the third one, till that cup made it full all the way to the end of that line. And then it filled up from the rear. They had spiritual priority. They had gone through their storm, and it was a hell of a storm. You can imagine. I can't imagine. They had gone through their storm, and peace had taken over. And they knew what it was going to take to survive to get everybody on that plane. Now let me ask you something. What's in your way? People, sometimes for us to have spiritual purity, to have spiritual peace, we got to get rid of the baggage. A lot of us have a lot of baggage. A lot of us have a lot of things that's bringing us down. If it's something that's going to bring you down so much that it's going to put peril between you and God, between Him and His peace, you need to get rid of it. You need to set it aside and let it flow. Tough love's hard sometimes, but sometimes it's got to be for our survival. For us to go out and re-energize and go tell the world. And Julie, you want to come on up and start playing? And I just want to offer you this. If you want some of that real spirit, if you want some of that peace that surpasses all understanding, that surpasses our wisdom, that surpasses our knowledge, as this last song's played, I'll be here praying at the altar. Randy will be, I'm sure he'll be able to help if need be. Come and get your peace. Come and get the real peace, not the conditional peace, but the peace that's going to feed you through turmoil, through crisis, through the low points in your life, the peace that will be with you there. It's not waiting for you. You don't have to wait for you to leave. It'll be there no matter what. Go ahead and play.
Ground earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of his voice, and seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my good. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me. And far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And the mountains that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well. It is well. So let go my soul and trust in Him. Waves and winds still know His name. So let go my soul and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go my soul and trust in Him. Waves and wind still know His name. Waves and wind still know with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. Sing it with me. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me.
And with that, may the peace of the Lord that surpasses all understanding penetrate your soul, and relieve you from the rigors of everyday life.